Let me take you through the user interface of Affinity Designer for iPad. So when we first run the app, we're greeted with the home screen, and this gives us access to working documents, as we can see here, tutorials, samples, and in the top right we can create a new document, access the in-app help, and access preferences. Now I'll just open up a document so I can show you the main editing interface. Let's start with personas. Personas are basically workspaces for different tasks. Now first we have the vector persona, and that gives us a number of tools for vector-based editing. Next we have the pixel persona. Notice how the tools here have changed. We now have access to tools for raster-based editing. And finally we have the export persona, and that gives us more advanced options for exporting areas of our document. So I'll just move back to the vector persona. Now we have these three icons here. So the top left icon is the home button, and that will return us to the home screen and autosave that document. So I'll just open it again. Next we have the document menu, and this houses operations like color format and color profile conversions, resizing, exporting, and various design aids like snapping, grids, and guides. Then we have the edit menu, and that's where you'll find operations like copying, pasting, grouping and ungrouping, that type of thing. Okay, now on the left here we have our toolbar. You may have seen these change already, but I'll just explain this. In the vector persona, this gives us access to vector-based tools like the node tool, the fill tool, the pen tool, and various shape tools. Okay, if I switch across to the pixel persona, we now have raster-based tools. So we have a paintbrush tool, an erase brush tool, a smart selection brush tool. Okay, and then down here you'll also notice this will have changed. This is the context toolbar. So this changes depending on the tool we have selected. For example, if I select the pen tool, I get a number of pen tool based options down here, as opposed to if I select, for example, the transparency tool. And this context toolbar will also change whenever we have an adjustment layer active. So let's move on to the right hand side here, and these are the studios. They basically give us access to a lot of the app's advanced functionality. For example, we have the layer studio, which gives us access to the document's layer stack. Then we have the adjustment studio, where we can add non-destructive adjustment layers. We also have the Transform Studio, where we can manipulate objects in great detail. And also we have the Navigator Studio, where you can change the zoom level, set the document to fit the screen, and also change the canvas rotation, as well as other options. So nearly done. We have these three options down at the bottom here. This option cancels whatever current operation you have active. So for example, if I have an object selected on the page, I can cancel to deselect it. This option toggles snapping, so just tapping it will disable and enable snapping. And finally, this option down here will delete whatever we currently have selected. For example, it will delete a layer or object. Finally then, down here we have a little tooltip icon, and what we can do is just tap and hold on it, and it will identify everything using tooltips. So if we want to find out what a particular tool is, what a particular studio is, or even the personas or menus up here, we can simply hold this down to get tooltips, like so. And when we're ready, we can just release to go back to our normal interface. I almost forgot. One final thing to show you then. At the top right, we have this icon here, and if we tap it, it temporarily hides the user interface. So we can have an uncluttered view of what we're working on. We can just tap the icon to bring the interface back. Finally then, just so you're aware, if we're doing some work, for example, I've got the Layers Studio open and I might be laying down some brush work, if we start to move towards the edges of the page, then the interface automatically hides so that we can see what we're doing here. And when we release, so we're finished doing our brushwork, the interface comes back.